Oh, it is! It is! Another episode of 5 Rounds. Sorry about that voice crack, by the way. It's another episode of 5 Rounds here on the 5 Reasons Sports Network. Alex Donno alongside James Walker. Frank Zaffere is going to be a few minutes late. He's going to be joining us momentarily. I'm happy. I know I didn't miss any time for this particular show. This is my first time back on 5 Reasons Sports YouTube all week. Just finished up jury duty. I was selected. I know that everyone bitches and moans like, oh, I hate jury duty. I don't want to be selected. And I get that. Like, you have lives to live. You have jobs to do and stuff. And it disrupted my week, yes. But at the same time, it was like, truly, it was an honor to serve. And it was a fascinating experience because I'm not a lawyer, not a judge. I learned a lot about the legal system and the legal process. And it's something I'll remember for the rest of my life. So, I mean, you know, is it probably more convenient not to be selected or not even to be called? Yeah, absolutely. But it's not an experience that I regret. But we have a lot to get to. And listen, now that I'm a legal expert, I can speak even more educated on this Cain Velasquez situation. We're going to get to that. We're going to get into a UFC 272 review. We're also going to, when Frank is eventually able to join us, we're going to talk about his latest episodes in MMA training because he's training for a fight himself. But I want to remind you guys, every episode here of 5 Rounds on the 5 Reasons Sports Network is proudly served by my spot. Make it your spot, the Quarterdeck Seafood Bar and Neighborhood Grill. I hope you went out to a Quarterdeck location to catch UFC 272 this past weekend because, bros, you paid absolutely nothing at the door. There is no cover charge to watch any UFC pay-per-view fight. So if you didn't watch UFC 272 out there, the good news is 273, 274, 275, into eternity. Every UFC pay-per-view is available at the Quarterdeck for no cover charge, my friends. And while you're there, oh, they're going to make a fan out of you. If you haven't tried the Quarterdeck before, you're going to love the 2-for-1 happy hour. It's a great place to wet your whistle. 2-for-1 drinks all day, every day. The beer is ice cold. The seafood is so delicious and so fresh. The sushi, build your own poke bowl, the fresh mahi-mahi, the buffalo shrimp. Man, if you're not a seafood fan, there's plenty of options out there for you. The baby back ribs are absolutely elite. The sandwiches and burgers are awesome. The salads are great. And I've tried the salads because I've been on this savage diet for the past 4 months. So I've had the salads. I can vouch for them. They are very, very good. So if you want to find the location nearest to you or peep their menu before you go, they have locations all over Broward County. Find the one closest to you at quarterdeckrestaurants.com. The Quarterdeck, come for the food, stay for the fun. Now, James, fair to say Colby Covington, who defeated Jorge Masvidal by unanimous decision, fair to say that wasn't the epic blockbuster fight that some folks were hoping for, correct?
Yeah, I think people were expecting, more gore, more violence, more, but it was a good technical fight. I mean, Colby did what he came to do. He mixed in his wrestling. He stayed in the pocket a little more than I expected, with Masvidal. I thought he would, pretty much try to drop him on his head as quickly as possible. But there were times where he threw 3-4 piece combinations, at Masvidal to get him against the cage. And then once he was against the cage, then he went for the shot. I can see, I could see really a lot of elevation in Colby's game over the last 3 or 4 years where it seems like, he's getting better. I mean, it wasn't as all the trash talking and everything, just everybody just throwing haymakers and stuff like that for 5 rounds. It wasn't that kind of fight, but I thought it was a good fight. I wasn't disappointed with the fight at all.
No, I agree. And if it was going to be that sort of fight that some were hoping for, like a big time brawl with heavy punches, that was up to Masvidal to make it that. That was his path to victory, right? Yep. If someone was going to win a slugfest, George Masvidal was likely the guy who would win that way. If someone was going to win with wrestling and control, that was Colby Covington. And Colby executed his game plan virtually to perfection. Yep. And Jorge Masvidal not only was unable to execute his own game plan, I think we got glimpses of it, right? The first 2 minutes of the fight, you kind of got an idea. Masvidal is going to go after Colby's legs, right? Going to try to do some damage on his legs, which would affect his wrestling, would force him to change stances. You saw a little bit of that first couple minutes of the fight. Unfortunately for Mr. Masvidal, he was just ill-equipped and unable to handle the offensive wrestling of Colby. But like you pointed out, James, it wasn't just strictly wrestling. He used his hands and use his combination to set it up. Colby did that well. And you notice, like, you talk about the smart game planning from Colby Covington. He obviously, anybody who watched, multiple fights of his can tell, he used a far different game plan in this fight than he did in the Kamaru Usman fights, right? Because the Kamaru Usman fights didn't have a wrestling advantage against Kamaru Usman. So he was going to have to win, with his patience and with his, his volume boxing, right? Against Jorge Masvidal, clear advantage in the wrestling. And I think he knew that, right? From the years that these guys used to train with one another, the stories that we heard out of their training sessions, like in sparring, AKA striking, Masvidal would get the better of Colby, but that's not mixed martial arts. Mixed martial arts, when you include everything else, the ground game, the wrestling, Colby would get the better of it there. And so it was up to Masvidal to stop his takedowns. And Masvidal talked about it. I didn't have it. I didn't have my wrestling tonight. I don't know if he would ever have good enough wrestling to deal with Colby Covington. And I also, like James, and to be in the pro Masvidal column, he did land an excellent counter right hook in the fourth round. Dropped Colby to a knee. Now, I thought maybe on the broadcast, because like Joe Rogan and Michael Bisping went crazy when he landed that punch. I thought they might have oversold the damage a little bit, because when Colby popped back up, he had a big smile across his face where it's like, I know you tagged me, but the guy wasn't dazed. He wasn't about to get knocked out. But at the same time, that was clearly a big shot landed by Masvidal, biggest punch he landed in the entire fight, and was too gassed to take advantage of it, right? Like that's, you land a punch like that, James, and then, you want your fighter who's clearly down on the scorecard, this is in the fourth round, you land a substantial punch like that, you hurt your opponent, you want him to go in for the kill. And I think if that punch had landed in the first or second round, maybe he could have gone in for the kill. Fourth round, when he had been ragdolled for the better part of that fight, just couldn't take advantage of it. There was nothing he could do there.
Yeah, I think in Masvidal's view, that fourth round was kind of how he envisioned the entire fight. He thought he would clip Colby in every round. First, second, third, he'd clip him and he'd be up and down, all that kind of stuff. And that would make it tough for Colby to really kind of do his onslaught. But it didn't really happen. And when it did, it was way too late. Masvidal, as you mentioned, just didn't have the gas tank to put the pedal to the metal. And even if he did at that point, who knows? Colby might have, grabbed his leg and took him for a takedown or something like that if he had rushed in too quickly. And I think Masvidal said that post-fight, that he was worried about maybe rushing in too quickly. And, if Colby had taken a shot, maybe he would have taken him down. So I think even Masvidal knows that he didn't clip him hard enough at that point, in the fight. But yeah, I mean, that was really Masvidal's, best way to win, is if he was winning the stand-up game and maybe clipping him every round and kind of turning it into that fight. But I think that was more up to Colby, more than anything. If Colby had decided to listen to his ego and say, you know what, I'm going to stand up with Masvidal for 5 rounds to show him that I can, beat him in a stand-up fight. That was really the only way that fight would have went that way. Colby was going to, obviously with the superior wrestling, he was going to shoot. He was going to take him down. He was going to make it ugly and make it his kind of fight. So I think that shows a lot of props to Colby Covington for, fighting his best fight, to get the victory. And I said this last week before the fight, man, Colby's a top 10 fighter in the UFC, man. And after, another victory, I'm starting to think he might be top 5, top 6. He doesn't have a belt around his waist. So I know, it's easy to say, the Kamaru Usmans of the world and the, Francis Ngannou's and a lot of the champions, ahead of that. But man, Colby doesn't have a belt, mostly because Kamaru Usman is in the division. But I don't know if you can find, 5, 6 better fighters in the UFC right now as far as all around game and toughness and gas tank, that deadly combination in Colby Covington.
Yeah, indeed. I mean, one of my big takeaways from that fight was this just reinforces how good Kamaru Usman is, right? I mean, he's got 2 victories over both of those guys, 4 times total. He's beaten the 2 of them, and clearly there's some distance between Colby Covington and Jorge Masvidal. And even though, to be fair to Colby, both of his fights with Kamaru Usman were close. The first one was doing pretty well, got TKO'd. Second one, competitive decision. I did think that Usman rightfully won the fight, but I admit it was really close. And I know Frank, who's going to be hopping on a little bit, he actually maybe thought Colby should have won that second fight, but still, it shows you how good Kamaru Usman is. And then Jorge Masvidal, he's a dangerous guy. I mean, he's got a few losses in recent memory, but it's because he keeps fighting people like Kamaru Usman and Colby Covington. So they're handing him those L's. And I want to pick up on something you said about when Masvidal landed that counter right hook, the dangers of trying to go in for the kill and maybe get taken down. It's an excellent point, because one of the things that I wrote down during that fight, during the second round of the fight, there was a moment when Colby Covington slipped, and I thought Masvidal would have been better served step back, keep the range. But when Colby slipped, Masvidal actually went to the ground with him, trying to establish an advantageous position, and got reversed. So, so he gave up dominant ground position to Colby without getting taken down because he got reversed. And so that was in the second round. He probably had that in the back of his mind during the fourth round, right? That this guy's down to one knee. Remember what happened to me 2 rounds ago when I followed him to the floor and I overcommitted. I get reversed. So that was probably on the back of his mind as well. And by the way, huge shout out, guys, if you're on here watching us live, take advantage of the live chat. You can talk to us. You can talk to each other. Hello to Alex M. Hello to our guy, Joseph Rodriguez. And how about this? Joseph is going to be following in my footsteps in a couple of weeks. He's got jury duty on March 28th. Yeah, man. Listen, I hope you can find value in the experience like I did. I'll tell you, though, James, there was something really, really awkward because and I think I'm not going to get into specifics, but I think I can actually talk a little bit about it now that the case is over. For, the woman who was suing somebody else, this was civil court, not criminal court. We handed her an L, unfortunately. And, I ended up on the same elevator with her 2 minutes after the verdict was read. That was very awkward. 20-second elevator ride felt like about 3 hours, bro.
Was it unanimous? Was the jury like everybody?
Yeah. It was pretty remarkable because this was a 4-day long case, and there's me and 6 other jurors. Technically, there were 6 people on the jury because one of them was an alternate who they sent home. Like he was there, I guess, in case one of us didn't show up. So they sent him home before the deliberations. But so I'm in the deliberations with these 5 other jurors, and we're not allowed to deliberate until after closing arguments, right? So we're sitting in a jury box together for 4 days, and I get outside of exchanging pleasantries with these people during the recesses and stuff. We hadn't talked anything about the case. So you kind of wonder, and you could take this back to like MMA judging, right? Because sometimes we say, hey, are these 3 judges watching the same fight? Like, how could this one score that round 10-9 for one person, the other judge scores it 10-9 for the other? I was actually amazed that after 4 days of these arguments and cross examinations and witnesses and stuff, the 6 of us get into the jury room together, and we basically saw everything the exact same way. Very cut and dry the way, I hadn't spoken to any of these other 5 individuals about it until then, and we all saw it pretty much exactly the same way, man. Yeah, so
yeah, that's interesting. I've been, I don't know, fortunate, unfortunate, depending on the day and how I feel about it, but I almost got called in the jury one time. I was called into jury duty one time about 8-9 years ago, but the case was settled right before they started the proceedings. So they made a big announcement and said, hey, the case has been settled. Everyone's dismissed. There was a little bit of celebration in the room, I'm sure. Okay. And, everybody left. So I didn't have, it was a 1-day thing. I didn't have to spend 3-4 days, there. And, but yeah, so no, it's interesting. It's interesting. You got to learn about the law process from the inside a little bit.
Yeah, no, and I know nobody wants to do it. And I wasn't eager to serve on a jury, that's for sure. But it's funny because they interviewed 22 of us. Both lawyers interview you and the judge talks to you a little bit so they can kind of decide who they like, who they don't like, right? And there were 22 of us that they selected 7 out of the 22. And let me tell you, man, some of the lame ass excuses I heard from some of those other people as to why, because the judge will ask, does anyone have, a reason why you think you aren't fit to serve on this jury? If you have certain biases that may affect the process, or if you have, work situations or family situations where you just can't serve for multiple days. Just some of the borderline begging that I heard from some of these people. I'm just honest, man. Nobody wants to be there. And I have a young son, but when they ask me, are you unable to care for your child if you serve? I say, listen, arrangements can be made, right? It's not a convenience to me, but I was honest. Arrangements can be made, and a bunch of these other clowns were coming up with these sob stories about why they couldn't do it. So yeah, I felt almost even though I didn't really want to do it, I did feel like, oh, they chose me. Like, it's weird. Like, for a moment, like, you feel like you won something. I just, you know, I'm a weird guy. Like, I almost felt like I was elected prom king or something, which I wasn't in real life, but yeah, I was selected for this jury. And so, yeah, before we're going to get into Cain Velasquez, we'll circle back to UFC 272 when Frank Zaffere is able to hop in. But going back to this Cain Velasquez stuff, before we get into that, I want to remind you guys, if you're in here, not only can you utilize the live chat, I see our friend Esta Finn is in there. Masvidal, good striker. Usman, the best at welterweight, all around, no doubt. Oh, he might be best pound for pound in the world. That's how good Kamaru Usman is. But I want to remind you guys, smash the like button. Hit that thumbs up button. Smash it. And make sure you subscribe to our channel, 5 Reasons Sports on YouTube. Alex M asked, is jury duty cover for gas? I got to fill out this paperwork now so that they can pay me for my time. So they pay, I don't know, I'm not exactly sure what it is, $15 an hour or something. So it's not like, that's going to have to cover my gas but honestly, if they were going to cover my gas, they should be paying me $50 an hour. See those prices out there?
Yes.
See those gas prices? Oh, it's crazy. So smash the like button. Make sure you subscribe to our channel. Okay, so there is this gigantic, and I get it. It's not perfect, but I totally get it. Let me put it on the screen here. The hashtag free Cain. Hold on. Here we go. This movement is going out there, and so I just tremendous hypocrisy in the legal system. And in this specific case, it's the state of California. So we know what Cain Velasquez did. Okay, we understand why he's been charged with second-degree murder, because he literally tried to kill somebody, right? And I can understand that the way he went about it with the car chase and then, shooting 7 rounds, 7 bullets, they said, into this other car to try to kill somebody. I understand that was reckless. I understand he was literally trying to murder somebody. We all know why he was trying to do that. We'll get into that. So from that perspective, I can understand why a judge would say, we want to deny this person bail because, he tried to pull off vigilante justice, although I understand why he tried to do that. And he endangered, endangerment of not only, the person he was shooting at, and he ended up hitting the stepfather of this person in the arm. And, there was risky the way he was chasing someone in traffic. So just from that side of it, I can understand why a judge would deny bail to that person. But denying bail to Cain Velasquez, while granting bail, and this person is now back out on the streets, the person who has literally been charged with sexually molesting Cain Velasquez's 4-year-old daughter 100 plus times over a 2-year period, to deny bail for Cain Velasquez, while not apparently thinking that an alleged child molester is a danger to be out in public. This person is allowed to be free pending trial, and Cain Velasquez is not. That's what I have a tremendous problem with. And when we talked about the motivation, I think any parent can relate to the idea that you go through something like that where your child's innocence has been stolen forever. Like what allegedly happened to his daughter, it's horrific. You can't undo that. You can't undo that scarring. You can't undo what happened. I think a lot of parents, if not any father, would fantasize about murdering the person who did that. And they never should have let that person out on bail in the first place, right? Because Cain wouldn't have done what he had done if that person hadn't been granted bail, okay? But it happened. And the way Cain did it, I can understand why he wanted to do that. It was incredibly reckless. But how can you say that he's a danger to the public if we let him out of jail, and a child molester apparently is not a danger? It drives me insane. Like, it makes me angry in ways I can't even describe.
Yeah, I mean, you pretty much hit it right on the head with all your points there. It's a hypocrisy. Whether you feel Cain should be freed or on bail, I think most reasonable people would agree that both of them should probably be in there, without bail. Would Cain be a danger, or would he be considered a danger had he gotten out? Considering, what he did before, I think a good argument there could be made, at least a danger to the alleged molester. and possibly his family for sure. And is the alleged molester a danger? I think you could make a very strong case, obviously, that he could be. So I don't really see the difference in why one is in and one is out. So man, our legal system, there's holes, man. There's definitely holes, loopholes and things that get exposed from time to time. And I think this is just one of those things, so we'll see how the jury system and the legal system, everything plays out as a whole. But right now it's just not really off to a good start in terms of how they're treating one and the other, and just a messed up situation, just overall, just a horrific situation in general.
Yeah, and even so, but before Velasquez tried to kill this person, before the alleged molester was released on bail, the district attorney had pleaded, don't let him go on bail. Like, this is not right. And then the judge let him go anyway. And then, what happened. And again, like, I totally get wanting to kill the person who did that. It's obviously, just by the letter of the law, what he did was reckless. But still, that person should have never been on bail in the first place. And so, all right, Frankie Z, you get to hop in right during the heaviest part of this conversation, man. So I love your take. James and I were just getting into it, and I like this suggestion from Alex M. Put Cain Velasquez and the molester in the same cell. I don't know how good. I don't know if this other dude has ever been a heavyweight champion of the world. But so and Frank, again, like, I can thank God I can't relate to it as a parent. I can understand why Cain Velasquez would do what he tried to do. Like, he tried to murder this person. I completely understand the motivation for it. I get that by the letter of the law, a judge can look at Cain Velasquez and say, well, high-speed car chase, firing bullets into another vehicle. I can understand why, just from his side of it, you would say we need to deny this person bail. But how do you deny Cain Velasquez bail and then you grant bail to an alleged child molester? And what are you going to say? Oh, we'll just put an ankle bracelet on him. It'll be fine. He won't disturb anybody. I mean, you could say you could put an ankle bracelet on Velasquez if you're going to let him go. Like, how do you deny bail to, someone who tried to murder someone who allegedly molested his child, and you don't deny bail to the molester? It's a disgusting hypocrisy.
It is. I mean, I could talk on both sides of it, and unfortunately, as I mentioned last week, I am personally, I had a personal situation that is exactly this. So it's a sensitive topic for me, and I went through the whole process, and then so I've seen a lot of how this plays out. I mean, when they're deciding bail, the way I will agree with you is maybe different than you think. When they're deciding whether or not they're going to hold someone, and they're deciding what bail should be, a lot of times it's predicated on whether or not that person is going to be an immediate threat to the public if they're out, and whether or not they're a flight risk. I think another consideration should be the anger and the extreme rage that is going to be evident in the people affected by the alleged crime, and that the judge should consider that when releasing that person. I said it last week. I mean, the difference between me and Cain is that in our instance, the person was held and could not get out. So nobody could do anything about it. And so I'm not going to pretend that I'm any better than him. What I am frustrated about with him, though, is that the way he went about seeking that retribution, because, I get the rage, I get the anger, believe me, but just firing a gun off on a highway, I mean, lots of other people could be injured or killed. I mean, so, I wish he had just gone to wherever the person is and just done what he needed to do
with his hands. Like, and don't even bring a weapon into it. I mean, you're the heavyweight champ. Get your hands on that person.
That's an interesting comment too, right, guys? I mean, it's like, he is an unbelievably talented fighter and a fearless man inside the octagon. So why the gun? It made me think that perhaps he thought this person would be armed. Or maybe he thought this person would be game, because I was trying to figure that out. Like, you really magnify what will result in his judicial process when
especially
you
in
bring
that
a
state
handgun into it. Yeah. Right.
Yeah, I mean, in Texas or Florida, it might not be as bad for him, but in California, they will throw the book at that.
Yeah.
Ooh, man. So yeah, I don't know if we really have a whole lot to add outside of that. You know, I don't know how long it's going to take for this whole thing to play out as far as, you know, the trials for both people, and you know, going to be separate trials. Cain for second-degree murder, and you know, the person who, you know, allegedly molested his child will have a trial.
Guys, I have to tell you this too. When you get into a situation like this, it's a child's word against an adult's word, and state attorneys will tell you right away, plea it out, because you could lose, no matter how damning the evidence, no matter how many admissions they made, no matter how many times you caught them saying, I'm sorry, I did it. You know, it doesn't matter that they can beat these raps. And that adds fuel to the rage that the people affected by it experience, because they tell you right away, yeah, let's go for a couple years, you know, and you're like, you know, then you're looking for your gun, you know, because, you know, then you're just thinking that no justice will be done here. So it really is just a horrible, horrible, horrible process. So,
man, and would the alleged molester not be a flight risk? I don't like. He's probably afraid for his life. He just got shot at multiple times. You know, by a guy that most people would be very fearful of, obviously. You know, and he's probably going to face many years. You know, at least you know, if he loses this case. So why wouldn't he be considered a flight risk? I'm thinking the whole bail thing and why they let him out. You know, so if they didn't feel he was dangerous to other people and they don't feel he's a flight risk, I just don't agree with that.
Especially in the situation of, you know, it's no matter what crime you commit, whether you embezzle or, you know, you kill somebody, jail isn't fun. But when you go to jail for what he allegedly did, I mean, I would think a flight risk, because, you know, the last thing you want is to serve a multi-year prison sentence where the people you're in with know why you're there. That's not going to go well for him, I would imagine.
Yeah.
So Frank, I'd love James and I said our piece on Colby Covington's unanimous decision victory over Jorge Masvidal, and we will get into whether Colby Covington is more Miami, more 305 than Jorge Masvidal. But the fight itself, Frank, obviously very one-sided and very clear. Although Masvidal did have one moment in the fight that he couldn't or didn't capitalize on. How did you feel about the way it went? I'm sure. Did you have any issue with the scorecards?
No, I mean, it went the way I expected, and it went the way we discussed on the show, I thought. And, you know, this is going to make you guys laugh, but just a couple weeks into this odyssey I'm on, you know, with this training, I can tell you that it has already improved, like, what I'm seeing. You know, Masvidal caught him. Why didn't he rush him?
Yeah,
because he was flipping tired, guys, because he was been ground on for so long that he just didn't have the spunk to try to rush in and finish that. I think he turned the light switch off on Colby for a second. And I think if he had more gas in the tank, he could have made that a really, really interesting round. But, you know, the strategy of wearing on him worked to a T. And Colby is, I mean, it's just so frustrating. And James always mentions this, so I bring it up because he's my partner in crime here in celebrating Colby's greatness. But, like, you know, if it wasn't for Kamaru Usman, he would be a long reigning champ, you know, and very hard to knock off. But unfortunately for him, an even badder man exists in that division right now.
Yeah.
So a few people had asked us last week, any chance these guys squash the beef, right? Because a lot of things you saw it when Colby Covington fought Usman. There were a lot of not so nice things said back and forth, and then they ended up hugging it out. Do you think that'll happen this time? We predicted no, and no was the right answer. As soon as the final horn went off, Masvidal starts, you know, talking a little shit. Colby's talking back to him. It takes a brave man in terms of Masvidal to actually still be talking crap after you were thoroughly dominated for the better part of 5 rounds, but he was still jawing at him. So no, this fight didn't do anything as far as solving the beef between those two guys. That is alive and well. So let me present to you, and you guys, you're both. Well, actually, I think Frank has always lived in the 954 since he's been down here. But James is a 305 deserter. He lives up in the 9. I'm still repping the 305 down here. James is now up in the 954. But as somebody pointed out, nobody ever wants to rep West Palm Beach. People even when they live in the 954, which is a very nice place to live. I did live there for a couple of years, and then I moved back down here. Actually, I wanted to stay up there, but it's a great place to live. But people don't want to rep the 954. People want to rep the 305. And Jorge Masvidal, who is, Miami born and raised, 305 born and raised, he considers himself to be the poster child of Miami in mixed martial arts. But okay, he just got soundly beaten by a man in Colby Covington who lives and trains in the 305. Well,
he trains in Miami now.
That's what I'm saying. Covington. Sorry. Yeah, Covington. I think he lives in the 305 now as well. Lives and trains in the 305. He claims to live in Hialeah. I haven't searched his address. So I'll take him at his word. He claims to live in Hialeah. He trains in the 305. While Jorge Masvidal, I'm not sure about his current address, but guys, he definitely trains in the 954 and like the northern part of the 954. You got to keep going a long way. For a guy like me, in South Dade, you start driving up to American Top Team. You're like, I'm halfway to Orlando by the time I get to American Top Team. So can't you argue that Colby Covington is more 305, literally more 305 than Jorge Masvidal?
No, man. Can I take that one first?
Yeah, go for it.
Man.
Yeah. Look, it's a question. You take it.
George is Miami, man. What I love about him is he's the first guy that legit came off that street fighting circuit and became a true mixed martial artist and a really relevant, competitive one, challenging for a title. Because we saw a lot of, BS. We saw a lot of hype, and we saw a lot of undisciplined and really not very mature fighting style. On CBS out there at what was the BB&T with Kimbo Slice, and we saw Dada 5000. I'm pretty sure he was resuscitated in their fight. I think, right? I think
he was literally,
literally. So George is the first guy, in my opinion, to represent that in a way where he was able to really he has become a true UFC star, and there's nothing more Miami than backyard fighting. Right. So that's George is all Miami. Look, Colby's from Oregon, man. Exactly. Oregon State,
from Oregon, but he now chooses to live and train in Miami. So but no, it does, because you can't choose where you're born. You can choose where you move.
Hey, he chose to go back to Oregon State to be a Division I wrestler when he left junior college.
But now
he chose to go back.
He chooses to live. Like George lives here because he was born here. He just never thought to leave. Colby actually sought out. And you realize, Frank, how far is Oregon from Miami? There's literally only one state in the mainland 48 that's farther away than Oregon. So 49 states away. He chose to live here. Jorge Masvidal lives 30 miles from where he was born. I would say Colby Covington, in choosing to live here, is more Miami.
No, deeper roots. I think being born here makes a difference too. I was born in Washington, D.C., Maryland, so I still call that home, even though I've been here for 10 years. I think having roots and things like that matters. And also, Masvidal has that Miami swag. When people think of Miami and their swag and stuff like that, Masvidal kind of exudes that. He represents it. He exudes that. Colby doesn't have that Miami swag, per se. So yeah, Masvidal all the way as far as Mr. 305.
All right, let's get into it. And by the way, in a little bit, we're going to be joined by one of Frank Zaffere's Hall of Fame coaches, because he's going through. He's putting in the work. He's MMA training. Before we bring on Brian Jackson, can we get into the toss up, Frank? And hold on, let me move you to your normal corner of the screen here. Woo, magic.
I was okay there. Yeah.
Well, that way, because you read the toss-up questions and then we go in order. So I don't want the people to get confused.
Okay. All right, guys, ready? Who should? I'm sorry, you wrote it, Jorge. Who should Jorge Masvidal fight next? I think that's an easy one. That's a gimme.
I think he should fight Conor McGregor next.
Oh no.
Yeah. Yeah, I think he should fight Conor. Because the other possibility for McGregor, which seems to be, I think that's the reason why the UFC is going to make Islam Makhachev fight against Beneil Dariush when he to me he's the number one contender. Like there's nobody's beaten that guy. I think he has earned Makhachev has earned number one contender status. Yet they're going to make him fight the guy that pulled out of the fight they were supposed to have a couple of weeks ago. I think the UFC is doing that because they're going to try, and once again, for like the 20th time, they're going to try to force feed us Conor McGregor, who hasn't won a fight since like the George W. Bush administration. They're going to force feed this guy into another UFC title shot against whoever wins or retains the lightweight belt coming up. So to me, like it's not earned a title shot. If you're going to do like a blockbuster fun fight, I would have McGregor against Jorge Masvidal. In the past, Dana has said, it doesn't make sense because they're not similar enough in size. I think that's bullshit. They've both fought before in the lightweight division. Masvidal's currently a 170-pounder. Conor McGregor has fought at 170 pounds before. A few years ago, they were both literally fighting in the same weight class. I know it's not like we're talking about putting John Jones against Max Holloway or something. Like we're talking about guys who are similar enough in size that they have literally both fought in the same weight class before at the same time. And there's no stakes there. I mean, both guys coming off of losses. You can put them at the top of a pay-per-view and a few million people are going to buy it. Honestly, I think that probably makes more sense to me now than anything else. And I know that you could do Conor versus Diaz, the trilogy, but I'd also like to see Conor versus I would also like to see Nate Diaz versus Dustin Poirier. So I think you could make Diaz versus Poirier, make Conor versus Masvidal, and that's two amazing fights.
Alex, you mentioned my pick, but you didn't mention him against Masvidal. I think a rematch against Nate Diaz makes the most sense to me for Masvidal. At this point, he's lost 3 in a row. He's still a marketable guy. Put him in against another marketable guy that has a little bit of unfinished business. I think both of them, even though Masvidal was winning the fight throughout, I don't think that either guy was really happy with the way it ended, with the stoppage, with the cut, especially for a BMF title, and it kind of ended like that. I think you can kind of do a BMF kind of rematch and bring the belt back and kind of, do a little pomp and circumstance and have The Rock, and maybe not have The Rock involved again, but
please have The Rock involved.
I think you can kind of make it a bigger deal than what it really would be, because at this point, with Masvidal losing 3 in a row, the shine has kind of been taken off, that fight. But I think if you kind of put him in against another big name guy like Nate Diaz and make it interesting at 170, I think that makes sense. Another fight, sorry, I hope I'm not taking your pick, Frank. Another fight I think Masvidal would really like at this point would be the fight that was already booked against Leon Edwards. But Edwards is probably getting Usman, assuming he loses against Usman, maybe later in the year, November, December, something like that. Masvidal can get in there and have that fight against Leon Edwards that never happened. But those would be my 2 picks.
The Leon Edwards fight you suggest, if he loses, is a great stylistic matchup. But the fight that has to happen is with Nate Diaz. They're the same people. George and Nate are the same people, just from opposite coasts. They can lose a bunch of fights and still sell an arena out because they fight exciting as hell. I mean, it's true. And they're both are going to go out on their shields. And the fight ended in a shitty way last time. I mean,
I agree. And people, and do you remember what round was? It was stopped for a cut. I can't remember what round it was. Do you remember? Was it after the second round?
It was the third round, I thought, or going into the fourth.
It was going.
That's when Nate gets going.
That's what I'm saying. That's what I'm saying.
You took away Nate's 2 rounds. Really, in my opinion, when I watched it, I thought, okay, well, we lost the rounds where Nate's going to turn it on. So I just think for that reason, you got to roll that one back, and so I'm hoping that's what happens because it doesn't matter. Either guy could lose. It's not going to change how the UFC can monetize him. That's why George has got a huge contract. Right. A new contract, because it doesn't matter. He could lose 5 more times.
Yeah, because I saw a lot of Masvidal Kool-Aid drinkers because I was complaining it sucks this fight guy because I'm the biggest Diaz fanboy on the planet. I'm very biased, but everyone should be biased towards the Diaz brothers because they're the best fighters of all time. Why wouldn't you be biased towards? So I was very upset just at the circumstance of the cut stoppage, and then I had all these Masvidal Kool-Aid drinkers, like, oh, bro, he was getting his ass kicked. Who cares? Like, no, man, we're getting into Diaz territory. You get into those championship rounds, that's when you separate the men from the boys. That's when you
Look how
separate.
fired up he gets, James. Talking about the Diaz.
I think he really believes it too.
I've talked myself into believing that Nick Diaz can make another title run, right? I mean, because I just thought, after how many years he was away. And Robbie Lawler has kept pretty fresh over the years. Like it wasn't really fair. And I don't think Nick Diaz was healthy in that fight. I think Nick Diaz could easily, beat Kamaru Usman or Israel Adesanya. I think as long as he gets a couple of tune-up fights under his belt, I think he's going to take a belt back. And I think Nate Diaz could win some belts as well. So yeah, I can't even remember what we were talking about now. I get so fired up about the Diaz brothers.
Which bouts are you looking forward to most for UFC Fight Night this weekend?
Oh, man, I think that is hold on. Let me pull up the card because there's a lot of good stuff on there. There's a lot. I mean, I like and I was talking about this with James before the show started. From top to bottom, I think this fight card, Santos versus Ankalaev, is actually top to bottom better than the pay-per-view last week. They just don't, they don't have the marquee fight at the top to sell it. This is, and I know he does come off a win against Johnny Walker, but a 3-fight losing streak before that. He's in his mid-30s. This is like getting close to like last chance saloon for Thiago Santos if he's gonna ever get into another title fight. And he's going up against a freaking murderer, right? I mean, this is a potential showcase fight for Magomed Ankalaev, who is like a 6-1 favorite in the odds, which means I probably won't be betting on him, at least on the money line. I think he's going to win the fight, but I'm probably going to have to find like a prop or something because I'm not going to throw my money at minus 600. But this should really be a showcase win for Ankalaev. Yet Santos still has very dangerous hands if he catches you. The co-main event is freaking awesome. You talk about last chance saloon. I misstated Thiago Santos' age. I think he's almost 40. Actually, I said mid-30s. I think he's almost 40. Guy who is in his mid-30s is Marlon Moraes, taking on a very promising Song Yadong. That's an excellent fight. Sadiq Youssef against their guy Alex Caceres, who's been around for like 100 years. Now that guy also represents Miami almost as well as Colby Covington does. That's going to be an awesome fight. Khalil Roundtree against Carl Roberson. Drew Dober against my guy Terrence McKinney, who just fought like 2 weeks ago. And Frank, something that made me very angry, because Terrence McKinney, who's a guy that I really, really like, I think he's an awesome fighter. He doesn't have a Wikipedia page. He deserves a Wikipedia page, right? Like in the old days when we would go through UFC fight cards on Wikipedia, we'd say whoever doesn't have the Wikipedia page, they're kind of irrelevant. Terrence McKinney is not irrelevant. Make this man a Wikipedia page. So this is an excellent fight card, man. I'm looking forward to. There's 6 fights on the main card. You also have Alex Pereira against Bruno Silva. None of these are snack break fights. Like this is an awesome card from top to bottom.
Yeah, what I want to see from Santos in the main event here is it seems like this is kind of the first time that the UFC is putting him in gatekeeper territory. He went from title challenger, lost 2 or 3 in a row. He beat Johnny Walker. Everybody's beating Johnny Walker nowadays, it seems like. But so he beat Johnny Walker, and now he's kind of at that gatekeeper to see, okay, which prospect is ready for a championship fight. So I want to see. I mean, you said 6-1, odds. So obviously, the odds makers don't think Santos has a chance, but with that power, he always has that knockout power and has a chance. But I don't think he's going to get back to title contention. I think right now this is where he is. He is a gatekeeper, especially at his age, as you mentioned. So I think that you're going to kind of see from him what you're seeing for the first time in this fight, where he's going to fight, mostly, title prospects to see if those title prospects are ready to take that next step and challenge the champion.
Well, look, Alex broke down the whole fight card beautifully. James just handled the main event really well. I'm just going to say, I agree with you, Alex, that it's entertaining all the way through. So I like cards like that. And Marlon Moraes is a guy I'm a big fan of. So
yeah, me too.
If you're asking me who I'm looking forward to watching fight, it would be him. Paige Van Zandt is signed with All Elite Wrestling. Will you watch?
I think I'm going to defer this one to James because you're into wrestling, right? Are you going to be watching the Paige Van Zandt review or debut?
Yeah, you already kind of spoiled my secret here. I'm already watching All Elite Wrestling, man. Before Paige Van Zandt, it's a great product, man. And I grew up a wrestling mark. I used to watch NWA wrestling, which turned into WCW wrestling back in the day. A little bit of WWF/WWE as I got older. And then after college, I stopped watching wrestling. But I still keep an eye on it. I still keep one eye on it to kind of see what's going on. And I really like this new revolution that's going on with AEW. It's only about three years old at this point, but they're signing a lot of interesting talent. They have a lot of young talent. They're booking matches in the right way. Sorry with all this wrestling. I should be on Sean Stanley's show right now.
Sure, he'd be happy to have you.
I know, right? But they're booking matches right, and they brought back CM Punk. It's an interesting organization. I'd say if you were a casual wrestling fan, and kind of, I think it's worth a watch. I'd say check it out on Wednesday nights, Friday nights, just to kind of see what's going on. But yeah, I'll be watching anyway. But yeah, Paige Van Zandt makes it interesting. I'd be interested to see how she performs in a make-believe setting as opposed to an actual real fight.
What about you?
Oh,
Frank?
my turn. No, I don't watch wrestling, but I am happy for her because, like Ronda Rousey, I mean, but not maybe obviously with all the hype and the pain associated with watching it happen. The MMA career wasn't going anywhere. So you go do this, you market, you take advantage of your marketability, and you make a great living, and you don't get your face disfigured every few months. So I'm happy for it.
Well, let me say this. I don't feel like I need to watch her on AEW because anything I could possibly see, I've probably already seen on her Instagram page. Do you guys follow her on Instagram?
I don't have Instagram. So.
Dude,
I don't either.
Like it gets like racier and racier like by the day. Like at some point she's going to create an OnlyFans account. Like I'm telling you, man. It's like, and listen, I enjoy the content. You do you. So sometimes I have to make sure like my wife's not looking over my shoulder when I go on the Instagram homepage. She is living that life on there, man. All right,
it's working for her because she just signed this contract. So good for her.
That's true. All right, let's bring in head coach of Team Zaffere. Is that something, Brian Jackson? Are you going to put that on your resume? Because I'm sure, like, I don't know how it works with coaches, but you'd probably want to have like a list of like prominent fighters you've trained. Are you going to put the name Frank Zaffere on that resume?
Well, to be employed, you got to have a job, and right now he's my only client, so my only fighter. So he's we're putting all the marbles on him.
And when you say for anyone who didn't watch you when we had you on a couple weeks ago, Brian's a real humble guy. He's a former pro fighter in his own right, and he's been in fight camps and trained, with the likes of BJ Penn and Eddie Alvarez. So he is a dude. Brian is a dude, and we're happy for your expertise, not only with Frank's training, but when we ask you fight questions on the show as well. But let's start with Frank. So the last time we spoke to you, Coach, was a day or two after session number 1. And we expected session 1 to be rough, right? Because he's never trained like a professional fighter before, outside of his white belt in jiu-jitsu from many years ago and like some high school wrestling, didn't have a whole lot of credentials. And so, we recapped session 1. How much improvement did you see in the session afterwards?
Well, I think right now the phase we're in, it's like having like a cover band, and we just got a new lead singer, and we're just trying to figure out what songs we want to play. So we're going over a lot of technique right now. I am doing a lot more stand-up just because it's a little bit more advantageous for the space we have right now. And Frank's doing a great job. I mean, we're just keeping him within his limits, and he's a sponge right now, and he's taking in a lot of information. I think I'm giving it to him in a way he can absorb it easier. One of the things we were talking about, you guys have this show. One of the things that we were talking about is sort of how someone would do in an MMA camp. And kind of one of the things that I like that has came up is this is a man who has his own MMA podcast. And it's funny when he gets on the mat in the moment, it's like he never watched a MMA fight in his life. But, he did mention that when we were training, some of the stuff didn't seem so foreign to him. And he believes that was due to how much fighting he has watched. So, it's that's one of the cool situations that came up. Everybody's Monday morning quarterback. But when given the opportunity, most people would make the same mistake, but worse,
No, I can understand it because like I'm also the farthest thing from a professional fighter. Many years ago, I went through just to kind of get a little bit of education, like a boxing tutorial. It was nothing like what Frank's doing, and it was only boxing. And like I realized like how rudimental I was, and how like my functional understanding, despite the fact that I had been watching boxing my entire life, and I was in like my mid to late 20s when I did this, and watching MMA at that point for like half of my life. And it's like, it's unbelievable. You don't realize how little you know, right? Until actually, and I feel like, and I had even done some MMA commentary even before that point. And it's like, I think just maybe my like understandings of ground positions was better than my understanding of like what you really goes into like striking. But it's one of those things where like being on the outside of it, like you can, even to an extent, that I was never an analyst, a play-by-play guy. Like the analysts are the real experts, right? But you can understand something when someone else is doing it. That doesn't mean you're able to replicate that yourself, is what I learned.
Oh, absolutely. It's the heat of the fire feels hotter near the flame. So
guys, it like today we were doing striking. I mean it's like overwhelming to think how much goes into just one simple punch.
Oh my God.
From your feet, your legs, your hips, I mean it's just you're breathing, and his patience. And I'm telling you, the next act for this guy, I mean he and Dean have to be around each other some more, but I'm telling you, if he can get me to a spot, we got to get you guys out to see it. We think now we've got a space that we can use pretty regularly.
Cool.
Because we were trying to figure out where we're going to go to do certain things, and we think this one gym is going to allow us to use their space. So we'll be able to get you out to see it. But I mean, like, I'm still a disaster, but when you see what he could do for me, it's there can't be any better testament to coaching ability.
Well, and something, and I haven't been out to a session yet, so I can only speak from kind of my feelings on this, Brian. I have no doubts that Frank is like a very eager, hardworking student, because like nobody's forcing him to do this. Like he's not doing it. He's not doing it for money. He's not doing it because like me or James said, hey, you have to do this for the show. You have to take one for the team. He's been wanting to do this for years. And I know he's a hardworking guy. So I would imagine like you never have to doubt his effort, right? Like if anything, maybe you have to kind of pull back the reins a little bit.
Well, I mean, the want is the biggest thing, the want and the why, because I'll be honest with you. I had 10 pro fights, and standing backstage at number 10, I still had to talk to myself, like, why are you doing this? Why are you putting yourself on the line? So if you don't know that, if you don't really have that why, or you don't have that want, or that what reason you're in that ring, you can really get hurt. It's not an episode of Jackass that we're filming out there. I mean, it can get real serious real quick, so it's good to hear that. I mean, he's got to really want this. And James kind of got me excited when he said the word mark, little wrestling term. I hope we get a little bit of that. I hope something can come from this, because I'm kind of inspired by what Frank is doing too, because I've been out of the sport now almost 100% for a year and a half now. And just to grapple around with him has actually improved my mood and how I feel just going through this week with him. So, I hope we can get somebody on board, maybe it's going to be about the opponent too, maybe like a rival restaurant owner, or maybe somebody
camper.
Yeah, but yes, screw that place, maybe a listener who wants to, prove that they can do it better than Frank, and then that way Frank can get the full experience. Maybe we can get get a little shoot, using a wrestling term, and Frank can get he can feel that heat of the moment, a little back and forth, see how he does with his one-liners. I think I'm excited about the whole process,
Coach, what's your take on training for cardio? At what point do you turn the switch from fundamentals and technique to cardio? And do you feel that's mostly genetic or can be improved? Just how do you feel about that subject when it comes to training fighters?
Well, the one thing we're talking about today that you might be a little familiar with, we were speaking about Greg Hardy and the problem Din was having with him and how his energy system was used to the short bursts, the 8-second, 10-second plays. And when I was telling Frank, I said, anything you do for 3 5-minute rounds with 1 minute rest. If you're going to go out for a jog, jog hard for 5 minutes and then walk for 1 minute. Just start training your body to have that output and then that recovery. Output, then recovery. That's really the main thing. And then just doing it repetitiously is going to train that nervous system to do things, correctly and functionally.
I like that a lot. Is there anything, Frank? Is there any rival restaurant owner you'd like to call out, like Mr. Duffy, if there is such a person, Mr. Bocamper? Is there anybody you would like to call out?
Man, I've got so much work to do with Brian before I'm ready to call anybody out. I mean, sometimes today, as an example, he's showing me a couple things, and I feel like, I'm starting to get it, and then he throws a leg kick in just to show me how he can build off a combination. I think I actually said to him, those scare me. Like, how are we going to deal with that? Because I don't want to get hit with his leg kick. So it's just so much to learn. I mean, there's so much to learn. And I got to tell you guys, I could not have a better teacher, but I have to share this funny story. This guy is so dedicated to helping me that we couldn't find a place to do jiu-jitsu work the other night. So he took me back to his place and cleared out a space, and we literally used his living room, right?
Oh, wow.
Yeah, so that's pretty cool, right? He's got mats, so we get out, but he's got this really big pit bull, okay? And the pit bull is obviously his dog. So I said, we're going to fight in front of the dog? I'm pretty sure I'm going to die.
Yeah.
This dog is so well trained, would sit there and calmly watch him choke me out, or
the dog probably knew that Brian was winning.
Right. The dog wasn't worried about the outcome, right? And then when the round would end and I would rest, the dog would hop down, lick my face a little bit. He was like my corner guy. And then I would go back in and get mauled by Brian again, and the dog would just watch. So that was a funny story. It added an element of danger, to have a pit bull lurking around you as you're learning grappling.
Now, Frank, traditionally, when this fight actually takes place, it's traditional to have 3 official cornermen. I would imagine you're going to have a spot for Dean. Of course, you're going to have a spot for Brian. Have you thought about maybe the 3rd spot for James or for myself, or are you just going to go for somebody else with actual training? Have you given any thought to that 3rd corner person?
He just told you the 3rd corner person.
Oh, the dog. Yeah.
Dog.
Well, I am so flattered that you're already angling to be in the corner. So that just made my whole night. So
yeah, I'm gonna get a tracksuit. I want to. I'm gonna yell at you I'm gonna sound like Ray Longo. I'm gonna have a thick Long Island accent that I'm just gonna conjure. I'm gonna go crazy.
Well, Brian just got me fired up with his analogy. So now I'm thinking we got to go Vision Quest. We got to call it something like that. So
yeah.
We need a countdown show. I want everything for it. He needs the whole experience. This is once in a lifetime opportunity. He's got to get it all. It's not just some regional undercard match. This thing should get some steam behind it.
Well, we're gonna have. I'm actually gonna attend it. And by the way, if any of you 3, I shouldn't say either, if any of you 3 want to go, I can try to put in a word for the PR people. I'm gonna go to the Eagle FC event tomorrow. So I'm assuming Khabib is going to be there. I'm going to tell him Mr. Nurmagomedov, huge fan as I am, just so you know, because they're doing a lot of shows down here. This is kind of their home base now. I'm going to let him know we've got what are you thinking, middleweight? Do you know what weight you're going to fight on?
No, I mean, well, I'll let Brian answer, but I mean, I think we're just going to try to not cut a lot of weight, just pick the right opponent for that.
Fair enough.
Yeah.
There's some things he doesn't need to experience.
Yeah.
I don't want to do the kidney failure thing, so
it's not worth it.
Well, I mean, do you feel because you got a lot less mileage than this other person, maybe a fight with Rashad Evans, who's on the Eagle FC roster? I mean, he's got a lot of wear and tear, Frank. I think if you're going to fight Rashad Evans, this is the time to do it.
Yeah, right. Well, he's got that suspect chin, right? So
yeah,
I can get my right hand going. Yeah, maybe I get out of there early. I like Rashad though; he's a nice guy.
Or if you want to cut zero weight, you take a heavyweight fight against Sergey Haratana.
I'm not
Very
that
long in the
heavy,
tooth.
guys. I'm gonna roll in. I'm about 190.
Oh, okay. I wasn't sure. I wasn't sure
Yeah.
if you were over 200. I didn't know what you were, honestly.
And with what he's put me, with the, I can see as this thing intensifies that I'm just going to lose weight as a function of doing this. I think
That's
so.
true.
We'll see where it comes in at.
I lost some weight this week just from doing it. So,
oh man, that is tremendous. Brian, before we let you run, it was not a close fight, so I wouldn't expect you disagreed with the judge's decision. But what did you think about Colby Covington's win over Jorge Masvidal? Also, the way Masvidal approached it, because there are two instances that I talked with James about before Frank hopped in a little while later. There was a point in the second round when Colby slipped, and I thought Masvidal should have separated. Instead, he followed Colby to the ground, ended up getting reversed. So it's like he gave up ground position without even having to be taken down. I thought that was just like a momentary lapse in fight IQ. And then you had kind of an opposite thing happen in the fourth round. Masvidal actually caught Colby with a almost picture-perfect counter right that dropped Colby to his knees and didn't pounce whatsoever. So it's like that was his moment of the fight. He was substantially down on the scorecards by that point. He had an opportunity, had him hurt, didn't do anything with it. How did you feel about Masvidal's performance in that loss?
You ever swim underwater for a real long time and then finally come up for air?
Yeah, I can hold my breath for like 35 seconds, and then it starts to the lungs start to get a little testy. So yeah, I've been there. Yeah.
That's what happened in the fourth round. So he finally got a chance to breathe, and that was all he could muster up, and probably was just trying to recoup a little bit. As far as the fight goes, I mean, that's pretty much what I thought was going to happen. I liked how I used the one segment to break down with is that my mic? I'm really sorry if that is. I don't know who's.
I think it might be. It's either you or James.
Yeah,
it's not me.
I don't know. James is
Yeah,
twirling it around a little bit. So, all right. No, I just thought that Colby just had the wrestling advantage. Usually it goes to wrestlers. I know Chael Sonnen said that Colby approached the first two rounds more passive, and then he kind of turned it on in the third. So I think he kind of backed off the gas, just let Masvidal drain himself out a bit, and then really poured it on after the third. I think Masvidal got a little lucky with a hook, wasn't able to follow up on it, and I just thought it was so hilarious. The Joe Rogan $20 bet with Michael Bisping that they were going to hug afterwards. And then when you saw the fifth round, he's like, I just lost $20. But, I'm a little like, it's kind of weird. You guys were talking about Johnny Walker later and kind of the Covington situation. I mean, it's really getting a little high schoolish, the whole American top team situation over there. I'm kind of like tired of the Dustin Poirier thing already. The Johnny Walker, he got upset like with the people laughing at the memes of his knockout. And it's just like this new generation of fighters is already starting to like, I mean, Colby's only 6 years younger than me. So, I mean, he's kind of taking the Chael Sonnen approach to, the way he goes about his business. But it's sort of getting a little weird just with the McGregor and his wife comment getting dusted. It's starting to get like hard for me to follow just a little bit. I sort of miss the old days when it was just, so respectful in the martial art way. It's all about clicks. It's just like you guys were saying. Yeah. You got McGregor coming back for a title shot, and you got the third highest paid guy on a 3-fight losing streak. It's just clear that it's at the end of the day, it's entertainment. It's still a business. The UFC's in it to make money, and whoever sells the most tickets or clicks the most links is who's going to get on the cards, and get the favorable matchup. So, you got to play the game the whole way nowadays. So it's kind of frustrating.
I did have another question to ask you, actually, and especially want to lean on your experience as a former fighter yourself. In the co-main event, RDA against Renato Moicano, were you okay with the fight not being stopped? right? Because I know that it was tough to watch. Now he did have a little bit of a late comeback, but I thought I wouldn't have argued if it didn't even get to that point. Do you think the fight should have been stopped? Should his corner have even thrown in the towel?
I've actually only seen first 3 rounds of that. My phone died while watching that the next morning on a legal stream, of course. But I heard from Chael Sonnen that it seemed like RDA stepped off the gas a little bit out of respect and just feeling bad for him and try to carry him through the round, and which is a mistake. You just try to put a fighter out of their misery if you can. And the corners, the corners they want to win too. And sometimes, there's been times where I question, should I have let a guy go out, but at the end of the day, if you think they can win, you got to send them out there. And clearly that guy had something just a little bit left in the tank. I remember a fight, I forget which one it was, but I even had bet on the guy. So I was kind of like, oh man, this should be stopped. But
I've been there.
He just kept storming back. And I'm like, brother, man, I'm with you all the way. Let's ride this till the end. But, it's at the, you got the Deontay Wilder thing. He fired his coach after the first fight with Tyson Fury. And that guy's Breland. That guy's a legendary trainer. So you're an idiot for firing him. Which, he didn't tell you to wear the costume to the ring or whatever. So it's just fighters you got to protect them from themselves. I think it's the refs. It's the ref's job first. Don't be a ref and try to put it in a cornerman's hand who's, who knows that if this fighter doesn't get that win bonus, that's the problem too, is these win bonuses, it's double your money, It's a lot of these guys are going out there like knowing that half my purse is me winning, Some of these guys don't even anticipate losing, It's like it all goes
probably already
like
spent the money, right?
I've heard many fighters fighting just for Uncle Sam. So but it's tough. It's tough to fighters. They want to die by their sword, so you got to protect them from themselves. But I think that if the ref and the doctor can't do it, then I guess the cornerman should have to.
That's well said. I just say it's the lesson that I learned from one of the greatest boxing films ever, Rocky IV. When Rocky Balboa, he should have thrown in the towel for.
It's just an exhibition.
For Apollo. Right. Well, so definitely all the more reason why he should have thrown in the towel. Apollo Creed got killed. Like, he didn't have to die. He did not have to die. That was the day that I learned. And I don't know how many years old I was when I saw that movie for the first time. I would be an excellent cornerman, though, to this day. That was the day when I watched that movie. That was the day I learned nothing wrong with throwing in the towel. Sometimes it's the right thing to do.
Yeah. Don't have that blood on your hands.
I'm surprised that Apollo's wife wasn't a lot more mad at Rocky for like, you had the towel in your hand. Why didn't you throw in the towel? Like, she didn't seem that upset about that. Obviously upset her husband was dead, but I would have been a lot angrier at Rocky. It is what it is.
I like that one more and more as I get older, but for a while I didn't like that one very much. Rocky III was kind of it for me.
Listen, Frank, if Rocky Balboa was a real person, do you think Vladimir Putin would be getting away with half of what he's getting away with right now?
Absolutely not. There'd be a boxing match in Moscow this Saturday to decide it all. Yeah.
He didn't like them much when he went over there. Maybe they didn't like him much, but they learned to get along. You just didn't like him much.
There you go. I love it, man. Brian, thank you so much for taking the time, and thank you for all the work you're putting in with our guy here. And hope to see you in person soon. James as well will be up there watching an upcoming training session.
I think his first sparring day, you guys should have to go 3 minutes with him each.
Oh man, well, he's got a head start on the training though. I'm gonna be shooting for takedowns. I hope you're ready for it, Frank.
That's fine, and I'll be in your corner and I'll throw in the towel if things get too okay.
You better throw in the towel for Frank. No. Oh man, Brian Jack.
Oh, we lost Alex there. Oh, we still lost him. Well, we'll keep Brian then because we lost Alex.
I thought
I
I
back?
thought this thing was horrible.
Yeah.
Yeah, you're back. You're back.
All right. I know exactly what I did. I get very animated and I unplugged one of my devices.
You're worked up tonight.
You are worked up tonight.
Yeah.
I mean, I've been in a courtroom for the last 4 days, and for most of that time, I just got to sit and watch lawyers run their mouths for hours and hours and hours. I can't talk most of it. You know how difficult for me it is to sit for hours at a time, not allowed to speak. It's all held in.
Probably as difficult as Nick Diaz versus Robbie Lawler was to watch for you.
That was actually very difficult. that was one of the worst nights of my life.
I had the opportunity to meet him in a casino. I was like 21. He was probably 20. And I just passed it on by. I was like, I don't know about this guy. I was like, photo op might end in a bed. I don't know. I passed it on by. But
there was this one time when I was doing terrestrial radio. This was even, Frank, before I started doing shows with you. This was
I didn't know there was a time before.
There was a time. It was a long time ago. But so this was when Nick Diaz, of course, was with Strikeforce, who he was with for many years. And they brought, this was one of the shows that Strikeforce brought down to Miami, and he was on the card. I did get to watch him fight live, which was awesome. He was on the card, and a few other like big name fighters were on the card, and like they were doing PR with the radio station that I was with, and I was like, I requested like fighters to come in for an in-person interview, and a couple of fighters did show up, but of course, the first name that I requested, not thinking there was any chance he would come, because I knew a little bit about his personality, but I requested Nick Diaz, and they actually told me they were going to bring him, right? They told me. And of course, in typical Nick Diaz fashion, few hours beforehand, they told me he's not going to make it. And you know what? I wasn't angry. I was actually happy. Like, I would have been upset because I know the Diaz brand. I would have been upset if he showed up because his brand is not being interested in press obligations, not wanting to go to press conferences. Like, he's even been punished by the UFC before for not showing up for press conference. That was on brand. I would have actually been more upset if he showed up. It was an honor to be canceled on by Nick Diaz. A couple years later, I got canceled by Brock Lesnar. I was not happy about that because I didn't feel like that was on brand for him. But being canceled on by Nick Diaz, that was a pleasure and an honor.
You bought the wolf ticket.
Exactly, yeah.
I got a nice story for you. When I was in Hawaii, actually, I helped a guy named Mike Ina train to fight Nick Diaz in Elite XC, and he lost split decision to him. So I think the key for that was he worked on Mount Mauna Kea. So that was 13,000 feet elevation, and then he came back down and trained at sea level. So it was like he had the cardio advantage for probably Nick Diaz's only time never not feeling the cardio advantage. So, that was a fun experience. That was coming off his Gomi suspension. That was his first fight.
Oh, I think I watched that, but I forgot. I'm going to go back and watch that now a second time because the name didn't ring a bell for me, but I do remember before and after the Gomi suspension. So I probably did watch that. I just forgot about that. That's interesting.
If you want to see a guy I had to deal with every day, the guy fought Iron Mike Ina, one of the angriest Hawaiian dudes I've ever met in my life. And he made life hell on me many practices, but made me very, very tough for it. So cool dude, though. Cool guy.
Oh, that is awesome. Well, Brian, thank you so much, man. Enjoy the weekend coming up.
All right, guys. Have a good one. See you next Monday, Frank.
Monday. Yes, sir.
Love it. That was educational. I love that.
Yeah.
So, yeah, I think maybe one or two more things before we wrap it up. Did you guys see? It looks like this is going to happen, as JP on Sports says, Robert Whittaker against Marvin Vittori, which would make perfect sense, like both, coming off high-profile losses to the champ. It makes too much sense to match them up together. So I hope that it's going to happen this summer, I believe. And Robert Whittaker caused kind of a stir this week on social media because in some post he made, he referred to himself as Skinny Rob, and it made people think he's going back down to 170. Oh, my God. Apparently, he commonly refers to himself as Skinny Rob, so he diffused it. He went on the MMA Hour. He's like, no. somebody took off of this. I'm not going back down to 170 because he was at 170 before he went up to 185 and became champion. He actually said that in the future, it's far more likely this being Robert Whittaker, it's far more likely he would go up to 205 than go down to 170. How do you guys think that would go for him? Because, obviously I've got to see it to believe it, but he doesn't look to me like a 205. There's a massive gap between 185 and 205, and he's not an especially big. He's just on the smaller side even for a 185er. I don't think that makes a whole lot of sense.
Yeah, and I don't think he really has much height and reach for 205. It would be one thing if he was, if he had a really long, slender build with long arms, and then you figure, okay, maybe you could put weight on those long arms and that slender build. But he's kind of short, and doesn't really have a very long reach to move up to 205. So I don't see it. And I've never really seen Robert really. I wonder what his walk around weight is. I've never really seen him like heavy.
He said it's about 220 is what he claims his walk around weight.
Really?
Is.
It looks pretty thick to me.
Yeah, he's thick. Yeah.
Yeah, he's in the right weight class. Look, it's the same problem Colby has. It really is. He's a tremendous fighter who would likely be the defending champion, but for Israel Adesanya. So that's it. Yeah. And I don't see him getting past Kamaru Usman. So I don't think going down helps.
Nope.
And I think one of you two guys could win the 205 belt. So if he wants to go take a shot at that, what the hell?
I'm down to 205 now. I'd make the weight. Tonight.
Apparently, some dude in Danbury, Connecticut, has the belt right now.
I just have to I have to try to target my striking attacks to his arthritis, and I have a shot.
Right.
I got to go for the joints. Well, listen, huge shout out to everybody who took time out of your evening to watch us. And the audio version is going to be available within the next 24 hours, if not sooner. So if you want to listen to us in the car while you're jogging, you can subscribe to 5 Rounds MMA, Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Google, wherever you get your pods, Amazon Podcasts. I think we're on. Anywhere you get your pods, you can find the audio version. Or if you want to look at our beautiful faces, you can, of course, watch back the video replay. And my friends, make sure you support the Quarterdeck Seafood Bar and Neighborhood Grill. They make this show possible. I know some of you told me you had a chance to go out to the Quarterdeck to watch UFC 272 last weekend for zero cover charge. I hope you had a great time. I'm sure you had a great time. If you missed UFC 272 out there, 273, 274, 275, and so on, they have every UFC pay-per-view fight for zero cover charge. You pay nothing at the door to watch a UFC pay-per-view at the Quarterdeck. And while you're out there, you're going to enjoy that delicious fresh seafood, the fresh mahi, the poke bowls. You build your own. The sushi is awesome. The buffalo shrimp is my favorite appetizer on planet Earth. The sandwiches and burgers are ridiculous. The jerk chicken sandwich is awesome. I spent some time down in Jamaica, so I'm now an expert on jerk seasoning, and they do a great one at the Quarterdeck. The baby back ribs are fantastic. The salads are really good, man. You want to enjoy a salad? Nothing wrong with that. Great food there at the Quarterdeck. 2-for-1 happy hour. The 2-for-1 drinks are always flowing. The beer is ice cold. Whether you're watching a big fight or a big game, Heat game, Panthers game, college basketball tournament, whatever you fancy, watch it out there at the Quarterdeck and you won't regret it. So if you want to find the location nearest to you or check out their menu before you go, visit them online at quarterdeckrestaurants.com. The Quarterdeck, come for the food, stay for the fun. And we ask, if you listen to us on the audio pod, please subscribe to our podcast channel. And if you're watching us on YouTube, whether live or replay, please smash that like button, hit that thumbs up button, and make sure you subscribe to 5 Reasons Sports on YouTube. Frank, I'll start with you, the fighter himself. Any parting comments before we wrap up tonight?
No, I apologize. I was late. I missed you guys.
Important business. It's okay.
Last weekend was one of those weekends where, I was really excited for a UFC main event, and I'm, looking forward to having that emotion again in the near future. But those are special weekends. You're thinking about it all week. Can't wait to see it. We know those both individuals. It was kind of Miami focused, even with Colby. So just a especially
with Colby. We have definitively proven on this episode that he is more Miami than Jorge Masvidal, because he actually trains in the 305. Masvidal trains in the next county. Colby Covington lives here by choice. He left Oregon on the other side of the country. That's almost as far away as you can go within this great countryverse. He left Oregon to choose to live in Miami, whereas Masvidal only lives here because his relatives live here. So I think we have deduced who is more Miami.
So anyway, it was a great Miami weekend, and I'm looking forward to the fight Saturday. And
James?
some rest, by the way. I'm taking a couple days to rest my body.
Good for you. Any parting comments, James?
Yeah, we didn't get to really dig into this, but I'm sure we have plenty of weeks to do so. Chimaev versus Burns now official as the third fight. On what number are we on? 274 now.
Well, next one is 273.
273. Yeah. So that should be a really interesting fight, and also with Chimaev training with Darren Till now, that seems to be gaining steam and a lot of people generating interest of. How much is helping, both guys, either guy, what have you. So a lot of hype around Chimaev. We should probably talk about him next week and beyond coming up against this big fight against Burns.
That is a great shout. We'll dive more into that next week. I'm going to be out. I'm sure I'm going to have a great time. I'm going to be out at Eagle FC tomorrow in Miami. I get to watch Diego Sanchez against Kevin Lee. Obviously, I expect that fight to go in Kevin Lee's favor. However, the stare down, and I had to miss it because I was in a jury. I couldn't go out to the stare down. Diego Sanchez, I love that dude. I don't necessarily think he should be fighting as a professional anymore, but he does the most intense stare. It is so menacing. So I'm digging it. I hope he doesn't get hurt tomorrow, but I'm digging it. We will talk to you guys again next Thursday. 6 p.m. on another episode of 5 Rounds on the 5